After speculation, it looks as though Nyck De Vries has confirmed that he has been talking with Helmut Marko for a potential spot with the AlphaTauri Formula One team for 2023. We have Zach Brown making a comment on Max Verstappen and Kimi Räikkönen. And are the young guns waiting in the wings to potentially get seats at Williams and Alpine? Let's get right into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Formula One Digest. I'm your host, Tyson De Silva. I'm joined by my co-host, Mark, and we're reacting to some really interesting news. Nyck De Vries himself has confirmed his talks with Helmut Marko. This is something we covered in our last video, but it was really only a rumor, and now it looks as though it is a legit thing. Nyck De Vries could potentially go to AlphaTauri, replacing Pierre Gasly and be paired alongside Yuki Tsunoda. Mark, what would this do for Nyck De Vries' career?
I think that it would be a great move in Nyck De Vries' career, although I've always seen him as a Mercedes driver, as, you know, uh, being the next up and coming great talent, replacing Lewis Hamilton. But I mean, there's a seat supposedly opening up at AlphaTauri if Pierre Gasly leaves. I think this could be good for the Red Bull camp. In the future, once Checo's career is over, I mean, this means they'll have two hotshot Dutch drivers.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that obviously he's been waiting to get his shot for a long time. He finally got it. And even though it's a small sample size, the reality is that Nyck De Vries and Alex Albon have done a lot with this Williams car that they've been giving, and they've done a significantly much more in the time they've had it. When you compare it to what George Russell did in his 3 years there, and what Nicholas Latifi has also done in his 2 years with the team, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to go in on your debut race, not having raced in F1 in ever, and the least of having raced a Formula car in a long time, other than a Formula E car, which is totally different than Formula 2 and Formula 1, and scoring points. I mean, that shows more than what Robert Kubica was able to do, and like you said, what Nicholas Latifi has been able to do in his 2 years at the team. I think that, some teams got to snatch this kid up because, he's waited 2 years. He's won a championship in Formula E, which is awesome. And it's amazing that he's done that. But I think he's waited a little too long now for his shot in the big leagues.
Definitely. And of course, I think that AlphaTauri also wants to move on from Pierre Gasly. I really don't think he was ever in the cards to replace Checo at the end of his tenure with the team. So, I think there's a bit of a mutual agreement that Pierre wants a shot now as opposed to when he's close to 30. And AlphaTauri wants I guess a fresh face in their garage. And I think that if you sign Nyck De Vries, you're kind of doing both sides justice there, because AlphaTauri get a Dutch driver and have a potential for an all Dutch lineup in a couple of years. And then Pierre Gasly finally gets his shot to race for what's essentially like the equivalent of his home team.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I don't think that Red Bull would have decided to go back to Pierre Gasly after his stint there. Like, that was disastrous for both sides, and it didn't work out. And, he kind of showed his hand a little in the sense that maybe this was the peak for this guy. Like, he won the race, yes, in Monza, but yeah, I think that if he moves on to a new top tier team in Alpine, I think this could be his shot to really prove how good he is.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's going to be really interesting to see if AlphaTauri does get him. But until then, I guess we just gotta still sit and play the waiting game. But in other news, as we also have been covering for a long time, Zach Brown has commented on the Colton Herta situation, and he's kind of pointed out that there is a flaw in the system. And he kind of points out that two of the former, well, one's a current world champion, one's a former, in Max Verstappen and Kimi Räikkönen, who entered the sport at a young age and they completely skipped racing in Formula 2, that they wouldn't have been eligible under the current system if that had been in place when they entered the sports. And he's literally quoted here saying, I don't think Max Verstappen would have been eligible for a super license, and I don't think Kimi Räikkönen would have been eligible for a super license. I think it just kind of speaks to the frustration that a lot of the CEOs and the team principals are feeling. And I think that this Colton Herta situation is really going to make the FIA and Formula One kind of question how they let drivers enter the sport, and they're going to maybe reevaluate it.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, Max Verstappen debuted at 16 years old and more impressively even won a race even younger than the youngest race winner in Formula One. So, I think that it does go to show that if you have these talents, like with this new system that's only recently been introduced to the sport, uh, you know, it's kind of flawed. It's shown that it's kind of flawed. And even so, you still get people slipping through the cracks in the likes of Nikita Mazepin, who bought his way into F1 at Haas. And look how well that went. He's not racing this year because of the situation that's going on globally. And look at how he performed on his debut. He did not perform at all. And like we even have the likes of Nicholas Latifi. Although he did perform well in his junior career, it just goes to show that Formula One is a big step, and only a few people can really handle it. And only a few people who move up from the junior categories can really handle it. And that's what separates Nicholas Latifi from drivers like Max Verstappen and Nyck De Vries and Colton Herta. Colton had a wonderful junior career. He's raced against the likes of Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll, who some people, I guess, would argue was bought into F1, but Lance Stroll did prove himself in his junior career. And Colton has proven himself very much so in IndyCar. So,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
no, like I definitely agree that there's definitely there. I think the bottom line is there needs to be a reevaluation of what they do and how they approach who gets to drive in Formula One, because as Helmut Marko has kind of said that we're basically going to miss an opportunity to get a talented American driver into F1. That's a whole other demographic in the world, and that it would do wonders for the sport. So at the end of the day, I think that it's something that needs to be reevaluated, and maybe this situation will force some people in the higher ups to kind of say, hey, like, what can we do to make this a better system? But speaking of new drivers and Colton Herta missing his opportunity, it looks so with Nyck De Vries going potentially to AlphaTauri. A lot of people thought he was going to go to Williams, and if he ends up going to AlphaTauri, there's a big question as to what Williams is going to do, because I really don't think that they want Nicholas Latifi on their team for another year unless they absolutely have to. And a guy that has been thrown around is Logan Sargeant, who is looking to be a potential replacement for Nicholas Latifi and may get to race alongside Alex Albon as early as next year. Mark, what can you tell us about Logan Sargent?
so yeah, Logan Sargent is an American driver in Formula 2 right now. He had a, well, he's had a great career so far in Formula 3 and Formula 2. And he was in the championship contention up until well, the last race in Monza when Jack Doohan clinched the championship. Um, if Logan had won the championship, I think he would have been fit right in to that Williams seat, and I think that that would have been one less puzzle piece in this silly season. He's a great driver. He has massive amounts of speed and talent. And I think that if he cleans up a little bit of his racecraft, I think that he would be a great fit for Williams. We'll have to see by the end of the season in Abu Dhabi, the Formula 2 season. But yeah, I think that Logan Sargeant would be a great fit for Williams as he has been their junior driver, I guess.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think it's fair to say that there's definitely a lot of exciting up and coming talent that is eventually going to have to break through in with the new and out with the old, I think is the saying. So, I guess we'll kind of see how these young guys, especially um, guys like also Felipe Dragovic, how they get their seats in F1 because while there are these young guys that are looking to get their chance, there are also some guys that have been waiting in the wings, like Nico Hulkenberg, who also still want to compete in F1. Even a guy like Daniel Ricciardo, who's out of a job next year, still wants to race in F1. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how everything plays out for these young drivers who show so much potential and talent.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll have to see where this silly season goes for the rest of it, I guess.
Yeah, I think at this point we just want some answers. But you guys are the best if you've made it this far. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate all the support, and we will see you guys in the next one.